There is a lot of people who state that they're willing to make a move. Do you expect to see a ton of movement? Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Unsafe Harbor podcast. In this episode, we'll talk to Carla Corley. Carla is the managing partner at Corner Office Consultants. Carla and her team have exclusively been recruiting Workday talent for the last 12 years. The more that I learn about Carla and Corner Office, the more there is to appreciate. However, the Workday compensation and market guide that they make available is absolutely one of my favorite things about them. If you don't know about the compensation and market guide, you need to check it out. I'll have a link in the show notes that you can use to request a copy of the most recent guide. Carla and I cover a lot of the findings from the most recent guide, and we also discuss some of the key factors and trends that we're looking out for. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Carla. I'm actually really curious to know about Corner Office. Like, where did that get started and how did that come into existence? And I think too, I want to know a little bit about like what makes you all unique in the Workday ecosystem. I think that'd be a great place to start.
So are you talking about the name or are you talking about even just how we came up with Corner Office?
Yeah, I think all of the above. I am sensing a very like a wave, water, nautical type of theme too. So I would love to hear the backstory around that as well.
Around that. I never thought I would start a recruiting company. Actually, I started it back in 2002. So I had left my last corporate job. Just a bad situation. I was out looking for, so I have an Oracle background. So I was out looking for Oracle project manager roles. And I just had, I just gotten tired of it. And I ran across the opportunity to start a recruiting company. And I was like, recruiters, ugh, they never, they never knew what they were recruiting in. They're very transactional. They would hit me up for DBA roles when I was clearly an Oracle financial person. They would just see Oracle, things like that. And that just really stayed in the back of my mind. And I said, well, if I can build something where the recruiters actually, come from the technology that they recruit in and things like that, and I can do it my own way.
Yeah.
Probably, like most entrepreneurs. So we naturally started out in ERP, so SAP, Oracle, PeopleSoft, things like that. And about 12 years ago, so we worked primarily at the time with tier one consulting companies, so IBM, Accenture, Deloitte, things like that, PwC. We were working on some Workday roles and really loved the people that we were talking with, enjoyed talking with them. I liked where the company was headed, the leadership in the company. And that's when we decided to take Corner Office and focus 100% on Workday. And
Okay.
so, yeah, that's about 12 years ago, a little over
Wow.
12 years ago. So as far as the Corner Office, obviously, this just shows how much things have changed over time. The aspiration of getting the Corner Office, obviously moving up in your career. And our logo is, it's actually a building, a person on a building. It's a wave
Yeah.
because your career is, it's a wave. It's, ebbs and flows and ups and downs and wipeouts and all kinds of things. And so now when you think about Corner Office, everybody has a different vision of what their corner office is.
Yeah.
Your corner office is right there,
Very true.
or
Yeah.
doing your own thing, or, it can be whatever. So when we did go all in on Workday, playing with the alliteration, that's when we started the Workday wave, started having fun with
Oh, yeah. Okay.
cowabunga and that kind of stuff and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a corner office.
That's
Um,
awesome.
it's kind of when you talk about a differentiator, again, not coming from a recruiting background, not coming from a sales background, I come from a consulting background. So um, we uh, we do things differently than traditional staffing firms. There's a little bit of a rebel kind of mentality to that. So we don't always follow industry norms. We kind of do things on our own. Some things have worked, some things haven't. We definitely have, I call it the secret sauce. We call it our 7C transformation framework. It works. We have proven results. We are pleased with it's where we can do things and provide to the ecosystem, and really kind of do it in our way. So, that's one of the things that we're really, really proud of.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there are. It's so funny that you describe it as the secret sauce because I can definitely get that sense from you all as well, right? There's just something that is very very appealing about you all.
Aw.
Yeah, yeah, and I really appreciate your perspective. Your LinkedIn is amazing. It's anytime your post comes up on my feed, I am like instantly drawn in. Some of the trends that you follow, not just Workday, but overall on the market and kind of things happening within the market, slowdowns, increases, really, really fascinating. So
That's so
love
funny. I
that
feel the same way
perspective.
about your LinkedIn post.
Uh,
um, no, I mean, I started out in finance, so in accounting, and so numbers resonate with me, and
yeah.
it is neat, especially in just the last. I mean, I talk about the 22 years, but even in just the last 3 years, the changes have just been, um, so dramatic, and so definitely want to share that knowledge with people and things like that.
Yeah.
But
I
a lot
love
of
it.
changes.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. What initially drew you to commit to just recruiting for Workday?
Honestly, it was the people. So it felt a lot different than the Oracle ecosystem. Again, leadership was a lot different than at Oracle. I liked where the company was heading, and it was the people. It was,
Yeah.
who do I want, if I'm talking with people day in and day out, who do I want to talk with? And just really, really enjoyed the people that we were initially talking with and all these years. I mean, it's been nice too to focus in just on this. And as we watch people, I mean, I still think of people we placed in boutique consulting firms that are now directors in other places and things
Oh,
like that. And
nice.
to watch people go through their career or have children or get married or different things like that. And there is that tight knit feel in the ecosystem.
Oh, yeah.
And it felt really good.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what I've enjoyed, just kind of being from that perspective.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely. I can 1000% resonate. This ecosystem is, I, man, it's even hard to like find words for it. I am so, so grateful. And I can tell that everyone feels that sense of like gratitude. And it's just this constant like, battling of like how much we can give to one another. It's awesome. It's
I mean,
awesome.
that's true. I mean, that's actually, when we talk about the confidence survey, that's one of the things that has consistently always been the number one thing that everybody likes about the ecosystem: the collaboration, the willingness to help.
Yes.
I was talking with someone the other day, outside of the industry, and I was saying, this people in this industry are so smart, in this ecosystem are so smart and so
Yeah.
creative, and there's so many good things going on throughout the ecosystem, and the willingness to share. And you don't really get that in a lot of different industries.
Right, right. Yeah, I look to some of these people in the ecosystem, and I just think like that probably took you so much time. It's really fascinating to try to understand like what drives somebody to do that. But at the end of the day, I'm just so grateful that I get to benefit from that. Right.
Right, exactly.
So you touch on the secret sauce is what you call it, right? At corner office. I think that one of the elements of your secret sauce, an ingredient per se, is this compensation survey that you all run every single year. I am, Carla, I probably sound like a broken record at this point. I am obsessed with this thing. It is absolutely amazing. And for those listening, I will have a link in the show notes that you can access to take a look at the most recent survey results. So for those who may not know corner office or may not know about the compensation survey, can you talk a little bit about what the survey is and what information is contained within the survey?
Yeah, so we actually started it back, I think it was 2017, and we first published it in 2018. And it was really, we were looking at a way to provide value to the ecosystem on a greater scale. And, people tend to ask the same questions, whether on company side or on candidate side. So we decided that we would start the survey. And it was important to me to put something out that was more than just some basic salary tables. It was really more about anything career related and things like that. Sometimes you'll see companies put out lead magnets and it's, you download it and it's like, duh, kind of, from what they have. So it was really important that um, that any of the surveys that we do, that we try to provide as much information as possible. And it's just been a game changer for
Yeah.
us. And we've had amazing feedback from people. Companies have said, I took this to the compensation group. I was able to get raises for my staff.
Oh,
We've had
that's
people that
awesome.
said that they've used it. They've been able to get increases. People have said, when I was going independent, I used this to make that transition. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And so we've just been really, really pleased with the feedback. And there was one comment one year cracked me up. It's let me make sure I get it right. It was normally these things are bleep, bad word. Normally these things are bleep, but this one's really good. Cracked me
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And so we that was kind of a badge of honor there
Yeah.
with that particular one. Yeah.
I love that. I can definitely see that in like quotations on the cover of next year's survey. So I love that.
It's actually funny. It was in one of the earlier years that we did that, and I actually talked to the person last year and reminded him that he said that, and he's like, "I don't even remember it." I said, "Well, I loved it, so thank you for sharing that."
We're making t-shirts next year.
Exactly, exactly. That's a good idea.
I love it. I love it. So I was referencing, some people in the ecosystem who just on a regular basis put out gold. This is just one of these instances where I'm like, oh my goodness, it probably takes you so much time. There's so much coordination to make something like this happen. So I'm really curious to know what inspires you to keep this thing going, right? I know that you alluded to a couple points already, but super curious to know, like, why do you all keep doing this?
Well, again, it's trying to impact on a bigger scale. We're not going to
Yeah,
be able, to work with everyone directly.
yeah,
And so this allows us to help in some way, the industry. And
yeah.
it's us giving back to an industry that's given to us.
Mm,
And so that's really why we do it. And it's the feedback. I mean, knowing that people are using this as a tool in their career is really, really important. So we've got some new things that we're going to be rolling out this year along those lines, where it's what can we do, to provide value. And again, for corner office, it's been a huge differentiator for us. It's allowed us to, the saying, what is it, punch above your weight class or punch above your
yeah,
weight.
yep.
It's been, huge for us. So, but it feels good, and it like I said, it is giving back and helping on a bigger scale than us, being able to work with people one on one and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see how this data would empower somebody to go out and say, hey, can we just review my current compensation, compared to the industry, right? It's really, really awesome. Or just even having data to back making a jump, right, from one place to the next. I can definitely see a ton of value there.
And it's more than, I mean, compensation is a huge part of it, but that's why we put in other things on, if someone's making a change in their career, or if they want to focus in different areas, which areas should I focus in, or different
Yes.
things like that. I think I mentioned to you, we have where we actually created, how to use this to impact your career in 2025. So
Yeah.
download that everybody can get, and have the report, but then also here ways you can use it to impact your career this year.
Yeah.
So, and use it as a tool from that perspective.
Amazing. Can you send me a link to that, and I'll link it in the show
Absolutely.
notes as well? Perfect. Awesome. So I'm sure that I'm sure that getting the survey results back kind of feels like Christmas every single year, right? It's just like, oh, I wonder what the ecosystem, how they responded to one question or this other question, or even how questions are trending up or down. Just at a super high level, were there any trends that like really blew your mind, or were really shocking to you initially?
Yeah, it was interesting. We got the results back right before Rising. So as I was going through everything, actually we outsourced it this year. Had someone that was running all the numbers and kind of the way that we wanted to slice and dice all the information, things like that. And I remember when Gary sent me a couple of the results, I said, these are wrong. You need to run the numbers again.
Yeah.
And he ran them again. He's like, no, this is really what it's saying. So that's when we came up with the idea of, in the report, there's a little symbol that we have. It's called changing tides because of how much had changed from the last two reports that we had. So yeah, there were definitely a lot of things that was like, wow, wait, so much so, like I said, that I was like, this is wrong. This is wrong analysis. You need to run it again.
Yeah.
So we had those all throughout the report.
Yeah, yeah. That is so fascinating. I again, I'm kind of a nerd about this type of stuff. So I just grabbed like a really great drink, sat down at a table, and just went to down on all of these key pieces of data. And there were some that really, I had a very similar reaction. Like, there's no way. And so I would love to kind of dive into some of those things if you're okay with that.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. So I caught onto kind of an overall trend throughout the compensation survey that there is a lot of people who state that they're willing to make a move, right? So I kind of see it as like movement potential, right? It's almost like this potential energy that's just sitting across the ecosystem at this point. So I want to call out specific numbers here. So it looks like 75% of responders say that they're willing to move from a customer to a partner. And then 84% of responders say that they're willing to move from a partner to a customer. Now, each of
Right.
these numbers is up from the previous survey, right around 30% or so from the last survey. That feels extremely significant. What are your thoughts around that specifically?
Yeah, I mean, this was actually one of the first things that I did send it back to Gary going, this doesn't look right.
Right.
And this is the first time that it jumped because in the past it had pretty much been consistent. I think it's just a sign of where the ecosystem is.
Yeah.
So obviously had a lot of change in partners. You're starting to get a lot of launch projects. Some people love them, some people don't like them.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, I'm ready to move into the industry, even though there is a fear sometimes when you're moving from consulting and industry, am I going to get bored? On the customer side, there's always been more people that are willing to go into firms. I think the thing in the past, what kept that number low was travel. Of course, there's not as much travel anymore.
Mm.
So, that I think is, again, just kind of the sign of where the ecosystem is right now.
Yeah.
And stuff. You are starting to see, some new boutique partners out there, people like
Yes.
that, and, could be part of something else. People seem to be open to that. The independent was one of the independents or contractors that were willing to go into a direct hire role.
Hmm.
That was that blew me away because that has always been that independents wanted to stay independent.
Yeah.
And I know I talk to clients all the time. They're like, oh, we want to do a contract to hire, and I'm like, you don't really see that much in our ecosystem. So that number was really shocking
Yeah.
that was higher. And I think just some people it could have been fear about the ecosystem going, are we in a mature market? Is there going to be enough work? Maybe some people are tired of subcontracting as opposed to working, directly with clients, and things like that. So those are some of the things I think that maybe are going on in the ecosystem that impacted kind of everyone's thoughts around that.
Yeah, yeah. So as someone who kind of takes time to pay attention to markets, right? Both high level and our workday market, do you see a lot of similarities? Do you see a lot of differences? Is our workday ecosystem, does it tend to follow like higher level trends as well?
Um, like right now they're saying there's the great stay. You had the,
Yeah.
we're still seeing a lot of movement going on in the ecosystem.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we're bucking that trend. Employment, even though there have been some rifts, employment is still strong.
Yeah.
Contractors are still busy. Uh, we are seeing a new thing happen. I posted about it last week on LinkedIn, where middle management or senior management is being laid off. That's actually consistent with what you're seeing in other industries, but we definitely have seen some of that happening in our ecosystem. But
Gotcha.
other than that, pretty much we're stronger than the market in general.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I definitely get that sense overall. It almost just feels like it doesn't really matter what's happening in the overall market. You really have to pay attention to what's happening in the workday ecosystem specifically.
Right, exactly.
So you mentioned kind of the great stay, right? I'm really curious to see what happens. I know that these responses feel like a lot of potential movement, but will that turn into actual movement? Um, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's really, really good question. So I think and this has actually stayed pretty consistent throughout all the surveys. 60% of people within a year and a half are going to move. Again, we're still seeing a lot of movement going on.
Yeah,
So is it that high? I'm not sure. With the great stay, I mean, obviously, given the political and economic, everything that's kind of going on, people are worried. Like, do I move or not move?
yeah,
But and of course, everything's not as crazy as it was during the pandemic and all the opportunities out there and things like that. So I do think that some people are going to stay, but that leads to boredom. You can go on any Reddit feed and see that there's boredom all throughout, burnout and things like that. So, we've been talking with companies on, look, if you want to retain your team, these are strategies that you need to put in place, because even though someone's staying, they may not stay once things get better or things like that. So I think it is just risk averse people are going to stay in roles.
yeah,
So it may not be that 60%,
yeah,
but there's still a lot of movement going on.
yeah, yeah. This is definitely like another key highlight that it took away from the compensation survey was just how I guess the very specific like lengths of service that most people report. So 40% of responders have 2 years or less with their current company. Uh, is this normal?
You're picking on the things that shocked me. That's so funny.
Okay, awesome, great.
Yeah, that one was really interesting. And what we did is we broke that down by age groups.
Okay,
So if you looked, it was anybody from 18 to 34. If you
yeah,
think about that, naturally people are going to move more in that time period.
yeah,
What was really interesting is when you started seeing where people were open to moving, is after they'd been in a company about between that 5 and 6 year mark. That's when you saw that everybody's kind of getting a little itchy to move. So,
yeah.
but yeah, it was that age group that actually drove that number up.
Interesting, interesting. So this feels like we obviously don't want to over generalize here, right? Um, but this is also kind of a number that we shouldn't be shocked about. If people are starting to get a little bit itchy around that 1 to 2, maybe even 3 year mark, or for maybe others, it's around 5 or 6 years of service.
Exactly, exactly. So, again, if as a manager, if you like your team, watch out for this.
Yeah.
Those things put things in place. But that 18 to 34, that makes sense that there's movement,
Yeah.
and then you would see that pretty much across any industry.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. That is amazing. Yeah, that number really stood out to me, and I didn't know if that was unique to the Workday ecosystem or if there were other trends that are pretty much aligned there. So that makes a lot of sense. Um, I know that you touched on this on a recent LinkedIn post, but I think one of the markers that I immediately jumped to, just because I'm personally invested here, is the remote versus on-site. So I have a figure here. It says 67% of responders are working remotely 100% of the time. Do you anticipate any type of shift to this number? Um, and it's funny. I do have to mention this. In my notes, I say, please say no.
I know. I'm like, do I need to follow the notes that you
Yeah.
get or not? Um, you are seeing some return to, some kind of hybrid situations out there. Really before the pandemic, it was flipped. You had 30% of companies had 100% remote policy, 70% didn't. It flipped almost. I think it's going to move back a little,
Okay.
but not as much.
Yeah.
There are things that are just better in person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to just say I want people back in the office doesn't necessarily make sense. Collaboration or brainstorms or anything like that, it tends to be better in person. But as we all think, why would I go into an office and get on a system that's in the cloud, when I can do this anywhere else? So, and again, when we talk about the changing tides and how quickly everything's changed, the pandemic and Zoom meetings and all that, I mean, all that technology coming out, and now it's stuff that we use on a daily basis. So, the technology's there to do that, but I do think that number will definitely probably kind of move down a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't
And
blame me.
yeah, I think that is somewhat aligned with kind of the bigger trends happening, correct? I think more companies are starting to shift a little bit away from fully remote and starting to go to like a hybrid type schedule.
Right, a hybrid. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I think there are so many different factors happening right now, and happening very, very quickly that it almost feels like whiplash. And we're still kind of in this transition period across the board, right? It
Oh
feels
gosh,
kind of
yeah.
odd. Yeah.
There's just a lot of change going on right now, and you can tell that there's just so much noise, and then you're hearing AI this, and every day, AI it's just. I was talking to someone last week, and I said, the things that we're talking about with AI now will be Stone Age by the end of this year. Everything is
Right.
happening so dramatically, and there is a fear, like, is this really going to impact this? How, you know, I mean, I know I've thought about it from a recruiting perspective,
Yeah.
and there are things that can benefit. There are good things about AI. There's bad things too.
Yeah.
Again, it adds to all the noise and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it is the workforce is changing so dramatically,
Yeah.
so quickly.
For sure.
So
For sure. It definitely does feel like whiplash right now. And I think we're still in the middle of it.
oh yeah,
So
definitely.
speaking of things changing, one of the most fascinating things that you all capture in your compensation survey that I was just blown away about was the market perception. So, in a question about responders' perception of Workday, the company, um, I I noticed that on the survey, 16% stated that they were very, very pleased with Workday, the company. And that is actually down about 46% on this year's survey compared to last year's survey. So I want to know, was that shocking to you?
It was, the beginning of last year, there was so much noise. I keep saying so much noise. There was so much change going on, and obviously leadership change, and then all these new changes coming out in the ecosystem. And people would reach out to us, like, what in the world's going on? And what does this mean? And things like that. So again,
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people are resistant to change.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was a change to the ecosystem. People didn't like some of the things. When we ask a lot of open-ended questions, so some of the feedback we had that people didn't like, they felt like that Workday wasn't paying attention to the core SKUs or modules.
Mm,
There were brainstorms that had been out there forever, and nobody's doing anything with it. Instead of introducing new products or SKUs, fix what you've already got.
yeah.
People were feeling like they're being nickel and dime for everything. Getting rid of the GMS tenant. It felt like there was just everybody's a partner, so now you're devaluing things. And I think you could really tell one of the things that people really like is the quality. There was always a pride around the quality of Workday professionals in the market and
Mm,
things that were being delivered. And you could tell that really bothered a lot of people, that it's like, okay, now you have so many new players and so many, people in the market, that it's kind of dragging down the quality of work and things like that. So those were some of the things that we saw that people were not really pleased about. Some of the changes that happened at the beginning of last year.
absolutely. Yeah. I think I was shocked to see the number in its concrete form. But I think the more that I sat and thought with that number, it made a lot of sense, at least in my head. I don't think that people are turning their backs on Workday. I don't think that there's this a negative connotation to the organization, but there's definitely a shift away from like just elation with kind of the organization and kind of the some of the more recent decisions that are being made. I'm not sure that this is kind of a trend downward. At least I hope it's not. I think it just feels a little bit like a change, right? People just don't like change.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. I agree with you. I don't think it's you know, a trend downward, and it's again change.
Yeah.
And as long as Workday responds, a lot of people were worried or concerned about you're not listening to the customers. Again, kind of going back to the SKUs and things like that. So, as long as they respond and
Yes.
and really kind of build back some of those things that they have, I think it'll be okay. But for
Yeah.
the most part, I mean, everybody still loves Workday. There's still positive vibes.
Oh
Again,
yeah.
the collaboration all throughout the ecosystem, the creativity all throughout the ecosystem. It's just been amazing watching that. So all of that still are really positives, if we're going to give a positive opposed to a negative.
Yeah, yeah. And that's actually a perfect segue to my next one. Again, continuing with the market perception, the option collaboration slash community scored 37% for what people liked most about the Workday ecosystem. So just to give listeners some context here, the second highest scoring option here was customization and flexibility, and that scored at 14%. So again, I think this is just one of those things where it was kind of jarring to see a number behind that. But the more that I just sat with that and like thought about it, it makes complete sense. Like this is what makes the ecosystem so magical. It just
Oh
feels like
yeah.
such a great place to be. And it really is just the people. The people make it so amazing.
It really is. And I mean, if you think about it, people want to create and build and, not just take a system and implement it and then let it just be. There's so much excitement about Extend and,
Yeah,
developing apps and all those kinds of things. And that's what people want to do.
yeah.
The flexibility, like you said, and the willingness that everyone, has from a collaboration standpoint. It really is nice to see.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so again, I think there's just aspects, kind of data points that you collect that are just so amazing to see because it really does feel like something that we all kind of grasp and understand. But to see numbers behind it and to see kind of our general understandings or general beliefs like confirmed in that way is really fascinating. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, having the data behind it. I mean, I'm a big believer in data backed it's one thing to, kind of, oh, this is what's happening, but when you have
Yeah.
data behind it, it obviously makes a stronger presentation and proof. So,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm curious to know, because I know that we're running a little bit low on time. Um, if you could look ahead to next year's survey, right? Or really, I mean, it'll be later this year. What are some of the open questions that are kind of lingering right now that you hope to have answers to?
yeah, and that's a really good question. Obviously, AI has got to be part of the
Yeah. Yep.
conversation.
Yep.
How that's going to impact things. AI, all the AI agents and that kind of stuff. Um, I think really looking at uh, I think one of the things from the last survey, it was around 20 something percent of people that had just moved in the last year into gig economy, so independence.
Yeah.
I think that number is going to be higher. So that's going to be interesting to see. You're starting to see a
Yeah.
lot of people do that, which again, if we think about the stat that I said earlier, that over 50% of the workforce is going to be independent by 2027, that will be interesting to see. Um, It'll be interesting to see, if Fins takes off. I don't think it's taken off like Workday thought it would.
Yeah.
And obviously, is the market going to adapt that? I saw something recently that there's a trend going on. Someone that I follow that he basically does analysis on HR tech. There's a decoupling going on. So now it always, it used to be you buy a platform, everything's in that platform as much as possible where it makes sense.
Yeah.
Now companies are open to decoupling, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And then I think breaking through the noise is really, something that I'm interested in watching, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But those are some of the things that it'll be interesting to see that I think will
Yeah.
be really different with the next survey that we do.
Yeah, yeah. To stick with the water theme, the waters are definitely murky right now. Very, very murky. And
Exactly.
it'll be really
Strong
curious to
undertake.
know. Oh, absolutely. It'll be really curious to know what all is kind of left, what the reality of the matter is, once everything is kind of settled, right? So again, if we were to kind of look ahead, if we could fast forward in time, and you have now gotten the results to your survey that you'll run this year, what do you expect to see from a movement perspective? Do you expect to see a ton of movement?
I think we're going to have movement. Again, you're going to have, I think, more entry into the gig economy.
Yeah,
There's still movement within Workday customers that we're seeing. You've got some boutique firms that are taking off and growing really rapidly. So yeah, I think we're still going to have all the movement. Um, it, uh, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting
yeah,
to see. Yes, I think we're going to have the movement. Do I think it'll be that 60%? I don't know. It'll be
yeah.
interesting. But
Okay,
again, that's
cool.
been kind of pretty consistent through at least the last three surveys that we've done. So
Yeah, yeah, awesome. And if I'm reading between the lines, there's probably a lot of factors that go into all of this, right? So it'll be really interesting to see where the chips fall here, right? Yeah, yeah. I'm again. I think your survey does such an incredible job of like pointing out some of those factors to really pay attention to in the ecosystem, at least for me.
good,
I
good.
think I've thought about a lot of different things, a lot of different aspects that I would have never thought about otherwise. So, yeah, I am definitely keeping a very, very close eye on your results, but then also how that plays out in the ecosystem as a whole.
Well, no, if there's ever anything you want to see, just let us know, and we'll make
Yeah,
sure to try to capture that and report on it and things like that.
awesome. Well, I do want to make sure that I ask this question because I love your perspective from a career perspective as well. What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone just trying to further their career in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so again, I'll go back to all the noise. Um, One of the bad things about AI is it adds to the noise.
Yeah.
So it's so easy to go out now, use ChatGPT, turn around, and you can see in your LinkedIn feed where there's just noise.
Yeah.
Some things are good and some things aren't.
Yes. Yep.
Um, because of that, it's more difficult to stand out.
Yeah.
And so I think that there needs to be a push to find the key differentiator, whether you're a contractor, whether you're a direct hire employee, and how to convey that to the market. And by that, I mean, I post things about telling your story, but it's really, um, here, instead of I'm a Workday Pat expert, it could be, uh, we had this payroll processing issue at this international company. Here's what we did to overcome that. And now I have a framework on reducing your payroll processing time by 30%.
Yeah.
And that's something that you take to the market and resonates with people as opposed to, I have 8 years of PAT experience.
Yeah.
So I think that that is something that people, really kind of branding, and how that impacts the customer, whether it's your employer or whether it's a client. I think that's really going to be the what people are going to need to do to stand out.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it,
Absolutely.
it it's funny because it used to be, and I'll kind of from a firm perspective, everyone was like, "Oh, we're a partner, we're a partner, we're a partner." Well, when everybody's a partner, then that's not a differentiator. It's kind of the same thing with certs. People are getting their certs, and that's great, and that does show you're continuing your education, you're investing in yourself. But when you have so many people getting certs, now you have to have this next thing, and that's what it's talking about. Is really, this is what I can specifically solve. This is my unique ability, and I've done it. And let me show you how I've done it. So
Yes.
providing that framework.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so key. This is so key. Yeah. And I've been just trying to think over the last couple weeks of how you make that happen, right? How you differentiate yourself in a potentially AI world, right? And I can't help but to think that like advertising your humanity is probably one way to make that happen, right? Just being a very real, present human being, and
Absolutely.
kind of showing some of those skills is going to be key.
Sometimes old is good.
Yeah.
Old being, and like you said, a personalization. Again, I was talking with a neighbor in the neighborhood. He has an Epic background, and he was saying that, he's had two AI interviews. And so he and I were talking about going through that. And I said, he said, I was just curious to see how it was. But, is that going to take off? Is it going to take off in our industry? Would you spend time on the phone with that? There's Boardly out there, which I don't know if you've seen on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's crazy stuff. So, but I do think then that personal aspect is also going to be really key.
I have just one last question because I know that people love to just collaborate and connect on the ecosystem. What's the best place that people can reach you?
Oh yeah. So, I mean, obviously on LinkedIn, just reach out to Nikki or myself. Corner office. Follow that page. We're putting a lot of content there. Again, we have big announcement coming up, and later April, May time period. So but always reach out. We'll always answer any questions if we can, and if we can't, we'll get you connected with someone who can.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I can definitely highly recommend your content. It is amazing. It is
Oh,
amazing.
you're
Not just
nice.
for the Workday ecosystem, but the overall market trends that are happening. Incredible. So yeah, definitely make sure to go follow Carla on LinkedIn. Um, Carla, you are the best. I was telling you
Uh,
offline that when I was thinking about starting this podcast, that you were easily in my like top three that I wanted to reach out to.
you're
So
very
I
sweet.
really appreciate you making this happen for me.
Well, no, and thank you for asking us to be on here. And I'm just so proud of you for doing this. And as you and I were joking earlier, between your own job and the kids, you still are able to put this out. And, this is a huge investment of time, but it shows your passion for Workday and the ecosystem, the collaboration, and just it shows your personality. So thank you for doing this. And I always love your guests and the content that everyone shares. So thanks for
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah, of course. No, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation. Be sure to check out the helpful links and resources mentioned in the conversation in the podcast show notes below. Also, be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter to stay in the loop about future podcast episodes and Workday tips. I'm Christian Delcid on LinkedIn and at cdelcid21 on Twitter/X. I would love to hear any feedback about how to make this podcast better, so be sure to subscribe, connect with me, comment, and share with others. Thank you so much again. Have a great day. The Unsafe Harbor podcast is my personal passion project, and it is completely separate from my role with my current employer or the Workday organization. The ideas expressed on this podcast are my own and do not represent my employer or the Workday organization.